All right, so let's start. Hello, everyone. My name is Patryk, and I came here from Google's Dublin office today. And today I will talk about how Google SRE and developers work together. And actually, this presentation is also about the SRE itself, because what SRE is kind of defined by its interactions with the dev team. And you may have heard about various things about SRE and its relation to DevOps. Like, these things are somewhat similar. There are also some differences, but I hope this presentation will show you better the similarities, differences, the reason why SRE is what it is. So let's start with some context, on complexity. So Google, according to a study done a few years ago, Google had like more than 2 billion lines of code. I don't know how much it is now, but it's a large amount of code, and this also implies that the production environment at Google is also very large, and it's not that it's just a lot of code deployed in different applications. These applications are frequently connected with each other, and the production setup is also frequently very tightly connected. So given such complexity, you may ask questions like how to run this, how to deploy this stuff. And even if you're not running things at Google scale, if your project is much smaller, if you don't have multiple teams in your company, only one DevOps team, I think some of the principles that are applied at Google could be also used in other contexts. So we know that there is a lot of complexity going on. We may ask ourselves questions: how to run a planet-scale system, how to start running one, how to keep it running, how to perform changes to that system, how to turn down the parts of the system while turning up some other ones. And because it's complex problem, it needs to be broken down to pieces. Like we need to identify the major forces that are at play. So when you're managing a large production system, the main two factors that are involved are reliability and velocity. Where I mean, like, reliability of the services and the velocity of the development of the services. So naturally, every software project has its developers. So the developers will pull towards velocity. They want to deploy their features very fast. So one of the key things about SRE is that there should be some other actor other than the developers themselves who push towards reliability. Well, by saying that, I don't mean that developers shouldn't care about reliability, that they only care about velocity. Well, if it's the case, they should start worrying about reliability as well. But the key thing is that there should be some balance between reliability and velocity. And this is the main principle behind SRE. This is like SRE is which translates to Site Reliability Engineering. This is the discipline where you want to find the right balance between these two. And that's how it's been defined by the person who introduced SRE back in 2003. So you may ask why Google doesn't have DevOps. That's well, we call this job Site Reliability Engineering because the term DevOps wasn't coined back then. So in time, after a few years of growth from a small company in a garage, Google decided that they need specialists for designing and running the system. So as I mentioned before, two main factors are reliability and velocity. And you may ask which one is more important. So arguably, reliability is more important than velocity because, well, it doesn't matter how fast you deploy features if your service is always down. So you should care about reliability first. But on the other hand, there is such thing as too much reliability. So if your service is always reliable, but it has UI from the 90s and nobody wants to use it, then what's the point? Velocity is also has to be taken into account, especially that if the users don't need that extra reliability, if you're fine with overnight downtime, as some banks do, for example, maybe that's fine. Another key thing is how do you implement, how do you take care of reliability and velocity? Because, well, there are many ways to ensure that the system is reliable, and there are like two main paths. One path is to throw more people at the problem. So let's say that your application scales up and there is more and more operations load, right? So you can hire more people, increase your ops team, and call it fixed. But on the other hand, if you spend some may I say, engineering resources to fix the problem once and for all, well, it's definitely better than hiring more people to do button clicking. So the long-term maintainability is also one of the core principles of SRE. Another thing is that is closely related to maintainability is efficiency, because well, you want to spend your resources wisely, and maybe better to have like a small DevOps or SRE team rather than growing your ops team all the time. So within Google, SRE works on many different products, and we also product areas we call now Google. So we have SREs that work with Google Search, YouTube, with ads, with maps. Also, they are working on some infrastructure projects like networking, storage, all these kinds of stuff. However, SRE at Google is its own organization. Well, it matters from the perspective of a large company, that there is a separate organization that focuses purely on SRE. So even though there are different flavors of SRE, each tackling different products, they have their and giving also. Even though they do different things during the day, like you can imagine, like being an SRE for Google Search can be like very important, super stressful. Like you have to keep this system running all the time. Like nobody wants to have Google Search downtime, or even worse, YouTube. That's terrible if YouTube is down. But overall, different SRE teams share the same principles. And this is how it's broadly organized if you want to look at how SRE teams are set up. So usually there are many more devs than SREs, and so it's quite common to see multiple multiple dev teams dealing with a single SRE team. And as you can see, they are working together. They have this peer relationship, despite that they are like organized into different ladders, different reporting chains. Another thing that's important on this picture is that the devs are funding the SRE, and we'll come back to this topic also later. But it is ultimately that the devs decide that they want SRE support that results in SRE teams helping them run the system. And another thing you can spot on this picture is that SRE teams are organized somewhat differently than the dev teams. Usually we aim at having two teams on different continents. Well, there are many employees at Google, and we usually can afford such luxury. But yeah, this is to allow for easier on-call coverage, especially for systems that require like 24/7 on-call coverage. Right. So This peer relation between the devs and SREs is what we call here an SRE engagement. So, despite that it's an engagement between teams, its topic is it is scoped around specific services or products. So it's possible that a dev team is developing many products, but only some of them have SRE support. This SRE engagement is not a one-way thing. It requires contributions from both sides. So it's not that you're hiring an SRE team, like, as a dev team. It's not that you're hiring an SRE team and you're done with your reliability needs. Reliability has to be a serious concern for both devs and SREs. This engagement can span any part of the service lifecycle. Well, which means that SREs can help the service while it's already running. They can also participate in building the service. They can participate in transformation of a service if there are some changing needs and you need to convert, like if you have to do serious changes to your system. SREs are also like a participation between devs and SREs is also very valuable. Last but not least, they all are also great people to have on your team when you're turning down a service. So in Google, there again, it's I'm talking from a perspective of working in such a large company, but yeah, there are many projects that are being replaced with some newer tools, and frequently we have to like gracefully turn down the service in order to turn up its like next generation replacement without any hiccups on the way. SRE engagement can take many different forms, so it's not like a one size fits all thing. And later on in the presentation, I will talk more about the default kinds of engagements that we have in the company. And another thing is that this engagement has to be aligned with certain SRE principles. And these SRE principles are called the SRE engagement model. So let's take a look at what makes this work. So SRE support is not automatic. So there are surprisingly many teams at Google, like surprisingly many dev teams at Google that have no SRE support at all, other than some baseline SRE support. So the care about reliability ultimately has to come from the dev team. The devs are responsible. Again, I will keep repeating it, but this is like the key topic in this presentation. So if they decide that hiring somebody like SREs would help them achieve reliability at a lower cost than by hiring more devs, so this is their decision to make. Also, involvement of SREs in a project should be strategic, but not tactical. So let's say if you're in a need to help deploying some new product, some new service, and you need some operational expertise for upcoming 2 months, maybe that's not the best fit for SRE. SRE is more like involvement for multiple years usually, and involving multiple people. Again, dev ownership. This is a dev ownership of the reliability concerns, and they are the ones that tell that they need SREs, and they are also free to say we no longer need SRE our project. That reliability is so good that we are better off without SRE support. That also happens. And well, it's not only the devs that has to decide and agree and like keep these decisions to themselves. It's also this is a consensual partnership. So the devs cannot force SREs to take care of a service. So if the SREs say, sorry, this product that you developed, it's too flaky, it's constantly crashing, we don't have a good monitoring setup, the devs should fix it. It's not up to the SREs to set everything up. Of course, they can participate in this work. They can be the major people involved in this process, but it shouldn't be like 100% SREs work. Right. So now that if you know that you need support of your support of an SRE team for your dev project, what should you do? How should you assign the tasks to the SREs? How should what they should be working on? So first of all, the things that SREs the things that SREs should do should be primarily aligned with SRE's mission. So it's not up to the devs to tell them what to do. They should have the freedom and flexibility to say that they have some like SRE things to do, that they are not like yet another devs working on exactly the same goals as the dev team. SRE engagements should have a clear value proposition, and let's consider what's the value here. So because the dev teams at Google are funding the SRE teams, it's usually about the headcount. So investing in an SRE team which has I don't know 20 people means that you don't get to hire 20 extra devs. So maybe you should hire SREs only if adding these 20 SREs means that the value coming out of that is greater than if you had 20 extra devs. So this is also something to consider. Another recurring topic, SRE is not an ops team. So SREs shouldn't be made SREs shouldn't be doing button clicking, and actually this is up to the SREs to identify such problems, that there is a lot of manual work, a lot of toil happening in the production. So yeah, SREs do ops, but it's a means to an end. It's not the goal to perform operations. By performing operations, SREs learn how to manage the production. They learn how to identify problems, distinguish between different problems, but then they are supposed to automate, provide some systemic solutions to the problem, either by automation or getting rid of the root cause of this amount of manual work. And the last point on this slide, ops is not a zero-sum game. So we have a game theory reference here. What that means is that whenever you spend time dealing with a problem, like fixing some production problem by automating the production, this is like a long-term investment. So there is nothing to be gained from more button clicking, but there's a lot to be gained from automating these things. And this line over there, yeah, on-call coverage is should not justify the formation of an SRE team. It's not like the only thing that discriminates whether you should have an SRE team or not. So another thing, how to make SRE work impactful. When an SRE team helps the dev team make a reliable service, it's a shared endeavor. It should be shared between the dev team and SRE team. There shouldn't be like artificial barriers between the teams. Of course, they are different teams. They report to different managers. They have different primary goals, but ultimately it's it's great when they get to interact with each other, and well, it's sometimes the devs can teach SREs how to use the system that they are supporting, and vice versa. SREs can teach the devs. The success of SRE must be tracked. So, well, basically all the important things that are happening in the service must be tracked. That is, if you this has, I think this has two aspects. So one aspect is that all the teams should be, like both the dev and SRE teams should know what's important happening in the project. Like if there are any big wins happening on the ops side, then the devs should also learn about this. But also it's important to plan work in such way so there is no collision between the SRE team and the dev team, so that they don't end up stepping on each toes. One way to achieve this is part of this success tracking is by implementing SLOs and error budgets. So, well, I will not go into the details here because, like, I am sure you've heard many presentations from Google about SLOs. But yeah, this is just about like remembering to use some quantifiable means of measuring the success. It's very important. And also, if the SRE engagement for a certain service starts, it doesn't mean it will stay the same all the time. Like maybe once every half a year, maybe once a year, the SRE and the dev counterparts should reevaluate what SREs should be working on. Like maybe the problem that you had 1 year ago is already gone, and or maybe it's much more tolerable than it was. Maybe you should change the focus of the SREs so that they are best used somewhere else. Yeah, so and to be able to change the focus, you also have to have clear focus on what's going on. Again, this is related to the fact that maybe it's cheaper to have more devs than SREs, and if you have an SRE team, they should really have a clear vision what to do, because otherwise there is risk of, well, misusing the resources. SREs should always, well, the SREs and the devs, everybody who's developing a product, a service, they should always advocate for the user. So this is always keeping the user in mind. Well, caring about production for itself, caring about jobs being up for themselves, well, it's a nice thing, but it's not. It's again, it's means, not a goal, right? So in the end, you should always think about whether what you're doing, whether what you're investing in, whether that improves the service from the user's perspective. One interesting thing that SREs do at Google, and I argue all kinds of DevOps teams should do this if they encounter such situations, is that well, the standardization of different solutions should be promoted. So let's imagine a situation that you're running 5 different services, each deployed completely differently on a different on-premise machine or on the cloud. Maybe there are like different clouds involved, and if there is a lot of accidental complexity like this, like if there are lots of things to learn about, it's really hard to grasp everything and have everything under control. So maybe it's better to spend some time, invest some, like do a long-term investment in standardizing these things. Of course, it's not always clear. It's really hard to convince somebody to spend like months of efforts, years of efforts to standardize things. But if you believe that the service, the application will keep running for many, many years, then probably it's worth it. And once again, SREs should, figuratively speaking, teach to fish. So they shouldn't be the only people who know things about production. They should be investing their time in spreading the knowledge across different SREs and also across spreading the knowledge across the devs. So they should definitely spend some time teaching the devs how to run the system. Like they may be like the first people to invent the ways how to set up monitoring, how to set up the shape of production, how to manage releases, and so on. But it's definitely better if the devs also know how to do at least some of the things. And while we are here, this point reminds me of this archetype of a person that's cannot be automated out of the job, like a person that tries to be irreplaceable, you know, that knows everything about production, knows everything about the system they are running, and if you try to fire that person or if you this person cannot be fired because they know everything about the production. So I guess that's a good place to be, but there's an even better situation, which is being like fully replaceable, which is if you care about spreading the knowledge around, if you care about good documentation, then yeah, you are replaceable. Somebody can fire you, but will they fire a person that's doing such a great job automating themselves out of the job? Like if they are such a great employee, maybe they should be just assigned different projects. And also, if you're considering changing the job, it's a great story to tell that you have automated yourself out of the job. So yeah, I think that's definitely a better place to be than being irreplaceable. All right. So earlier I mentioned that there are different types of SRE engagements. Let's quickly review them here. So, well, the first kind of division that we can create is like we can think about different engagements depending on the time when it starts or when it ends. Yeah, so this is a life cycle of a typical service, and well, typically the SREs are engaged when the product is already running. So the devs have implemented their product, their service, they have launched it, and now they are facing the problem: how do we scale it up? How do we keep it running? So if the SREs or DevOps engage after the product is launched, then it's really hard to make any changes to the system, like especially like fundamental changes. So it's much better to apply the shift left approach. So if you have a chance, make sure that the DevOps are or SREs are engaged early in the conversations about the system, because it may turn out that it completely redefines the way the service is implemented. Another kind of division, it's about like the commitment. So there are like three main kinds: baseline, assisted engagement, and full support. And you can see the typical transitions between these two. So usually the SRE support starts as baseline, then if needed, it becomes assisted engagement. Then again, if there is such a need, it could be full support. But if there is a full SRE support for a team, it may very well be that some like months, years spent on this project will result in such a stable shape of the service that the SREs have like successfully automated themselves out of the job. So this baseline support, like to provide some context, we have all kinds of all these three kinds of supports at Google. It really depends on the team. Like there are teams that are more focused on the baseline support, and teams that are more focused on the full support. So baseline support works really well when there is an SRE team that's takes care about like the very basic, very widely used services. So they do not partner with any specific dev team. They are like to serve possibly hundreds of the dev teams. So this kind of approach is like when SREs are hosting office hours for these teams that need some guidance, some consulting. It can also be in the form of repeated but time-constrained consulting projects. So this is an example of a baseline support. So let's imagine, for example, if you run monitoring at Google and there are like 100 teams that are using monitoring, surely you will not have regular meetings with every team, but occasionally, sometimes there will be someone who will come to you with a very tough question, or they want to develop a new product that will have some very specific needs. That's when the baseline support is the best. Also, at Google we have incident response teams, which is like people who specialize in managing incidents. So let's imagine a situation that there is a dev team that they like fully care about the product, but there is an outage, like a multi-hour outage, and they need to resolve as soon as possible because it's like really it's really expensive to keep the system paused. So, so in order to give them some like better environments, in order to let them focus on fixing the issue, they can ask the incident response team to manage the communications, all the typical operational things like communicating with other internal teams, communicating with external customers, such things. So this also belongs to the baseline SRE support. Another example on the slide is called SRE Love, and this is a variation of the consulting that I described before. So let's imagine a dev team that owns their own production, but they have guidance from the SRE. So the idea is that the SREs are kind of rented to the dev team so that they can teach the devs how to run the production. They are not meant to become on call for the service, but this could very well be this could evolve in a more serious dev SRE relationship. So this next level, this level of support is assistant engagement, and this is great for teams that have like let's say if there are like a couple of dev teams for a single SRE team. So in this situation, the devs and the SREs have a following mode of operation. That usually there is a single SRE working much more closely with a particular dev team, but at the same time the SREs try to learn a little bit of like different things happening in different dev teams. So yeah, there's like one assigned person, but everybody is trying to learn this or that. And the role of the SREs, like if you look from the on-call perspective, SREs should be on call for in this model, SREs should be on call for this wide kind of coverage, but they should also occasionally be on call for the specific things happening on the dev side. So let's imagine a dev team that has like all the dev people being on call for their product, plus this one or two SREs that occasionally become on call for this specific part of the service, so that they can learn more about this. And of course, this can also mean like a longer term designing engagement. An example of that is embedded SRE. So I guess I just described it, that SREs are effectively borrowed from the SRE team to the dev team. They are still the part of their own team, but they are there to spread the knowledge and help build the good principles of SRE. And finally, we have the full support, which I guess is like if you heard about SRE before, then this is probably what people were telling you what SRE is. Like this is like full-time commitment between a single SRE team and one or more dev teams that That means shared on-call responsibilities between SRE and dev. Okay, sometimes at Google only SREs are on call, but we try to always keep the devs in the loop so that they still know how to do the ops. This is really useful. And yeah, it can also mean significant project work from both sides, but frequently there are projects between SREs and devs, like working on the same coding project, for example. And so this time I will not give an example of a typical full support engagement, but an engagement that actually ends. So if the SREs do a good enough job on like introducing the SRE principles, making the production better, monitoring better, then they should be able to like automate themselves out of the job. So that means like either working on some completely different projects with completely different dev team, or maybe working on some new projects with the same dev teams. And of course, what I'm telling you here is all ideal. It all works great in practice, in theory, right? But in practice, it doesn't have to be like this. However much philosophy you put in how teams should be shaped, there is always a risk of operations overload. There's always a risk of some friction between the dev team and the SRE team, or maybe even within the teams. Sometimes there is lack of engagement from either of the sides, and the best thing you can do is to apply the incident management principles here, which is most important of all, find the root cause of what's causing this to happen. If necessary, escalate to people who may have like more experience with managing various teams. At Google, we have something that's called things that are called cold yellows, which is if there is a huge problem identified and many people agree on that it's important, they should like abandon their daily work or may make it less time-consuming and focus on this newly discovered problem. So this could also be a material for code yellow. And don't be a hero, so don't spend too much time trying to fix things with your own hands. Ask other people for help, like try to tackle the problems together. And it's very important to keep the relationship as good as possible between the dev and SRE team. So to sum up, SREs at Google are a specialist organization. They have lots of principles, but I guess most of them make perfect sense. They are not only about keeping the lights. They are not only about reliability. It's also it's a balance between reliability and velocity. Maintainability and efficiency in mind means that it's not only button clicking, it's all about trying to automate all the things, or even better, eliminate the need for automation. And there is a partnership between SREs and devs, and the engagements take many different forms, and they always evolve. So, speaking of SRE engagements, we would also like to engage with you. So if you have any suggestions, if you're doing something like SRE at your work, then, me personally and SREs at Google in general are interested to learn about this. Like, I'm always happy to learn about some other people's perspectives. If you're interested more on these SRE subjects, both more technical and more like this one, make sure to check sre.google. And also there are plenty of interest. I admit I have to catch up on my book reading because I don't know the two on the right side. Yeah, so basically every year there is some new book. And Thank you. That's it.